Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to be my guest. Today we have from Worcester, John Kelley. And John is the Senior Commercial Loan Officer at Unibank, based over at Gold Star Boulevard in Worcester. Okay, but as we all know, Unibank is all over the lot. I love that bank. Anyway, welcome, John.
Jan, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and always happy to talk about my wonderful team at Unibank.
You have a good team. How many in your team?
It's a pretty small shop for, there's about maybe 6 people, but I interact with a bunch of other departments as well. I think the bank has made sort of a conscious decision that leaner is better rather than having 50 people bumping into each other. We work more efficiently and more closely, and so it's a close team, and we all have to be respectful of each other, and that's a happy thing at Unibank. It's part of our mantra.
I asked John when he came in, you must have been good at math. But tell us the story of how you after you graduated high school and where you went from there.
Yeah, I don't think it's unusual that my career sort of happened accidentally. If you talk to a lot of people, they will sort of. I don't think anyone grows up wanting to be a bank loan officer.
No.
Maybe Rockefeller or somebody like that. But I was in college. I hated college, and I bumped into a guy who was working at a bank, and he said, I don't really like my job, but they're paying for me to go to college, and they keep promoting me, and I'm like, what is it about that you don't like?
Yeah.
So I ended up leaving college that summer, and I took a job at a bank, and I've never looked back. I've actually worked in banks for almost 50 years now. I started out in retail as a teller, and they quickly figured out that they had to get me off of the teller line. It was just too painful. But yes, I'm not good in math, but I was functional. Let's put it that way.
You were teachable. My parents had to get a tutor or a senior to come tutor me just to get me passed on sophomore year in high school. If I didn't pass that, I might have been kept back. And of course, pride pulls in that. You don't want to be kept back from your class. I made it. I just made it.
I'm sure you did. Most people do struggle through, and I think everybody finds what they're good at. And there was a time, I think it's fair to say, that I was pretty good, an analyst and a numbers cruncher, and I learned that after I got out of the retail side of the bank, I became a credit analyst for a couple of years.
What does a credit analyst do?
I'm sorry?
What does a credit analyst do?
Credit analyst is sort of the entry-level position in a lending function for commercial. Commercial lending is different than any other kind of lending. If, for example, a mortgage, you put X% down, there's, you qualify, there's a certain ratio. It's all semi-formulaic. There isn't a whole lot of value judgment that goes into it for the most part. Commercials, it's a wide open book. I think banks have different appetites for different types of products, for different types of industries. So I work for a small bank in Boston, and I really got an opportunity to look at a lot of different things, a lot of mostly small business lending, and you just jump right in and you do a lot of small business lending, and that's how I cut my teeth, and I think most people do as they go up the path. Nowadays, the kids that come in are just far better prepared than I ever was. But there's something about everybody learns differently, and but no, I enjoyed the ride up, and I worked at several different banks when I was younger. I started off in the credit department. Yeah. Credit analyst,
you're analyzing
credit loan review officer who basically looks at the portfolio. I spent a couple of years doing that. So I had a pretty good foundation in credit, which for the most part keeps banks out of trouble because, if you're too aggressive, if you're too, willing to engage in speculative lending, not a good thing for the bank. And I think early on I learned that the good credit discipline, it's important to have. So I've sort of always had that with me, and I've been to a lot of different banks since then. But for the most part, I think that's served me well. It's it's always there are some banks who what's the euphemism? Gunslingers. They want to do every deal. They have to, they want to redevelop every town that they hit, and that's kind of not a great strategy for banking. More, not a ready, fire, aim, but more of a this is what we want to do. And at Unibank, I've had the opportunity to come in here and to do that, help the bank grow. And again, I have a pretty good book of business over the years, and I've made quite a few loans, both real estate and other types of loans with the bank. And my skills seem to complement and fit very well with Unibank. Let me tell you a couple of secrets about Unibank. Not secrets, but facts that are not so well known. Unibank owns a company called Sterling, which is one of the largest boat financiers in the country. It might be number 2 or number 3 in the whole country. Right out of little old Whitensville. I had
Whitensville?
Sterling is a division of Unibank, which is headquartered in Whitensville, and they do boat loans all over the country. In fact, I had a boat loan with Sterling before I joined Unibank a long time ago. So that's one of it. Another thing is we have the single largest government banking initiative in the Commonwealth. There are, 350 towns in the Commonwealth. We do business with most of them, over 300 of them. And that's a specialty type of product that's served us very well. We've got a great team in that area, so it's, helped us grow deposits. It's helped us really what our mission is. Our mission is as a mutual bank. It's a little different than, pick a bank. Bank of Boston.
Yeah.
It's a different Bank of America, I guess
Bank of Boston
was
in Whitensville, but what happened? They closed down out there.
Yeah, I think it happens. I think every time two banks merge, there's one bank that has one on the corner, one of them goes away, and the other one becomes something else. But Bank of America, they're a big bank, they're a good bank, and but they do, they just do business differently than we do. Their emphasis, as it has to be, is on earnings. What's going to happen in the next quarter? What how do we how do we generate more profits for our shareholders? And that's capitalism, and I understand it. But I'm really lucky to work in a bank that's a mutual bank, and a mutual bank it's an elusive definition. But I'll just say that it exists for the benefit of the community, and I think most people, if you mention Unibank, they always remember someplace there's a picture of a big giant check that they're holding up that we donated some of our profits to support the community, and we do literally hundreds and hundreds of that. We have a foundation that's a charitable foundation that's it's who we are, and it's actually it's a great environment that's created because of that.
The staff always seem friendly. If I go over to our Unibank here in Upton, you'll just get used to a teller, and then I guess what they do is they shift them to the different branches. You just get used to it, and that's kind of neat. You get to meet new people.
Well, I think we are all creatures of habit, and I'm no different than anyone else. But I think in reality, more and more customers no longer come in and visit with a teller every day. People do it online. They do mobile banking.
Drive-up window?
It's kind of a generational thing, I admit, but it's probably been several years since I've actually had a face-to-face contact with a teller about something. But I think that our people in the branches are terrific. They just are, and I think it's a difficult job. I mean, people. The one thing I learned early on is that people are pretty funny about their money.
Oh, yeah.
And, God forbid you short somebody $10 when you're cashing their paycheck or you move the money in the wrong way. People get very upset. So I think, again, we're blessed with a great team of retail bankers. Chris Foley, the president of our bank, and my boss, he ran the branches for a number of years, and Justine DeNorcia, she also has been very active in the branch system. She's our executive vice president. And the other part of the senior management team is the newest member is a guy named Michael Welch. Michael joined us I'm going to say about 2.5 years ago, and he's not a banker. This is the most interesting thing. Usually, it's pretty boring. You have bank presidents, they have this job to perform, and it's a pretty logical step.
Is he more PR?
Oh, I wouldn't call it PR. I'd say more community. I think Michael he was a headmaster at St. John's, so therefore he knows literally thousands and thousands of kids that are now all grown up over the years, and their parents, and I think and that was a great school, a great cornerstone of the community, and I think I think he's been able to bring that sense of community to our bank. Not that we didn't have it before, but I think he really underlines it. And Tim Wickstrom, of course, is the chairman of our bank, and he's been doing it for many years, and his family has also been very active in it for years. So there's a great continuity to it, and there's a great sense of purpose and a sense of community. So it makes it, again, there's nothing wrong with profits, and we like to be as profitable as the next bank, but I think at the end of the day, when your mission is a little bit more noble, makes everybody feel a little bit better.
I think I can't remember his first name, but Mr. Brown, when I lived in Whitensville a number of years ago, was the head of the Unibank in Whitensville. What a nice guy. Very nice. I don't know where he went after that.
I can't help you. I've only been there 3 years, and if I'd met him, I probably forgot his name by now. Anyhow.
We're talking with John Kelley, and he is a senior commercial loan officer up at the Unibank, based where he is at the Gold Star Boulevard in Worcester. But you do get around to the different branches. How can they reach you, John?
Well, I think the easiest way is to, email, I think, is the way that works for everybody. It's john.kelley@unibank.com. If you want to track me down, it's not too hard. Our website is pretty good, and it has easy access to us.
They wrote a great article about him. This is how I found him. In the Community Advocate, March 25th, I believe. Great picture. And it talks about Unibank announces John S. Kelley to lead commercial lending team. Now, I'm not a financier. I really know nada about banking. I mean, I would rather get a safe and stash a bunch of cash in that. I don't know, what is it? The grandparents used to put them under their mattress. You can't do that nowadays. Somebody breaks in, they're going to know exactly where it is, right? But now you also wrote a book. This is another side to John. Years ago about, what was it? Not hockey. What was it?
It was called The Season on the Rink.
Yeah.
And it was about youth hockey.
Yeah.
And it was a friend of mine once characterized, I tend to do things a decade at a time. I was really into writing at that time. I had a newspaper column in my hometown of Suffield, Connecticut.
Oh, really? Okay.
The Suffield Observer. And so it just sort of, the books sort of was an offspring of that. And I sold 1,000 copies, which was pretty good for a small book, and I gave most of it away to charity. And but it was fun. I really enjoyed doing it, and I think youth hockey is its own special blend of madness, and the parents and the kids and the travel. The parents are, and I wrote my book before there were murders and assaults on a regular basis at the hockey rink, but it was a fun project, and I enjoyed doing it. But I stopped doing that maybe 15, 20 years ago. And
Unibank has its 152nd anniversary this year, right?
That's correct, Jan.
My God, I didn't know they'd been around that long. Well, obviously, it's fantastic.
The Unibank, it's a funny name, and my understanding of it, and I'm not the greatest historian, but the U comes from Uxbridge, which is obviously
they've got a branch there too.
And the N is Northborough, and there was a bank merger probably 50, 60 years ago, so they sort of had the U and the N, and then they sort of had, as legend has it, Jan, they had an employee contest to try to name the bank, the newly formed bank, and it was a play on unique, and it fits. Unibank is unique. There's nothing quite like us out there, which is
that's pretty cool.
Is good.
Yeah, they got that name. Tell us about the interest rates.
Well, they are elevating these days, aren't they? I think banking is one of the businesses that touches on a lot of different industries. But for example, we spend a lot of time with the lawyers. legal documents, loan documents, but people in the bank, for the most part, aren't lawyers. They're not specialists. We deal with, various manufacturing companies, and they all have their own issues and try to understand what makes their business run. We also, we deal with the economy. We deal with politics, but we try not to, pick sides. We try not to, but I do think that there are certain things in play in the economy right now that just are troubling. Inflation is, I didn't really get what it was announced today, but it's probably in the 8% range, which is the highest it's been in 40 years. That has an impact right across the board, money out of everyone's pocket every year. And
even the people going in for a personal loan, it affects them. Do banks do that much anymore, personal loans?
There's a fair amount of it that is done. I think, like anything, a lot of banks just specialize in just that, and that's pretty much all they do.
Credit unions do, I think, that, don't they? Do that a lot?
We do have a fair amount of consumer lending at our shop. We do a lot of residential mortgage lending. We do home equity lines of credit. We have a very active team that devotes all of its time for doing that in and around the valley. So we're pretty busy at that.
Yeah.
And that's a good line of business for us. It has been for a long time.
I remember I went to a bank out in Millbury years ago, and I wanted to get my feet wet, and I needed a personal loan, fully $5,000. But to me, this was, they said, you're going to need somebody with you as your co-signer. So I have a friend who was really up there, excellent credit. What I did, John, was go and pay it in person every month. I was so dedicated. And when I paid that off, then I was able to get another one for the same person. But I would go in person and pay it.
I'm not an expert in that area of the world, but what you've just described to me is a very wise course of action. There's nothing worse on anyone's credit report than, okay, we loaned Jan $5,000 and she took the money and went to Baja, Mexico for a month-long bender. No, that doesn't work, and you never would get credit again. But by doing exactly what you've done, you've taken the first steps in being, a prudent borrower, a responsible borrower, and I think that's the type of head start you get when you go to get that first mortgage loan, or you don't have to, the more benders in Baja, the more explaining you got to do when you go to try to do it. So it's best to have a nice clean record and a credit score that's put you in the financeable category.
What would you say to the people who, this is horrendous. We have a house. We could sell it, make quite a profit right now. Okay, that's nice. But not enough to get into another house. Or if you go to a condo, that damn HOA. You got to get a roommate just to pay for the HOA fee every month. So a lot of people are staying in their home. And what is it they call it? They reach out to do they own it. So they do something on the mortgage. What is that?
Well, there's a reverse mortgage, which is, again, it's a high-risk product, and it's something that you shouldn't enter into without doing a whole lot of research and getting maybe even some legal advice on it, because it's basically you're pledging the equity in your house and getting money, and you're sort of selling the house, if you would. But I'm not the guy to characterize that, but that's one way. Home equity lines of credit are another way to access a portion of that equity in your house. We do a fair amount of those, and I think they're pretty popular right now.
Yeah.
But you've just explained the basic dilemma out there, in that, yes, property values have risen.
But where are you going to go?
but what do you do exactly? You have to, I think anyone who owns a house in New England and has owned it for 10 years is sitting on a small pile of equity. But unless you want to go move in some small town in Nebraska where you can get a house for $85,000 or less, and that's kind of doesn't appeal to us. I think New Englanders are a special breed. We tend to stick where we grow our roots, and I think that's indicative of our bank. We make loans all over New England, and we do a lot of housing loans too. So apartments are, if you sell that big house and you're much older than you, Jan, you would have that money, and you might rent in a smaller apartment, and quote unquote downsizing your living.
Yeah.
But rents are expensive here as well, and I think it's.
I don't know how they're doing it.
It's hard to figure it out, and I think I don't know.
You got to get a roommate. That's no, you know, how do you cope with a rent that's even a 2-bedroom apartment that's $3,000 a month? You have to get a roommate. There's no doubt about it. Maybe 2, if you're single and young, you know, whatever. How are you going to do that?
It's really tough, and even in certain markets. You know, Boston, there have been any number of new apartments built in the past 5-7 years. And, you know, New England, the really, you know, the first 30 years of my lending career, I never financed an apartment complex. People just weren't building them. It was always, there was more profit to be made in building a house and selling it, and building a condominium and selling it. But as of right now, I think there's a fair amount of capital flowing into New England to invest in residential apartments, and it's probably the most popular product type that we have been looking at and loaning on in the past, at least the past 3 years. We do 1 or 2 really sizable loans a year.
John, would you suggest small businesses, entrepreneurs can come to Unibank? Would that be qualified as commercial?
Absolutely. We have, and I think the definition is C&I, commercial and industrial. If you own a small machine tool shop, or you're a contractor, or whatever you're, maybe a family business or whatever, those are the type of customers that we really reach out to, particularly here in the Valley. We do an awful lot of C&I lending. I think we're a dominant lender. You know, there was this thing called the PPP program, Paycheck Protection Program, that was the government. Unibank did, I want to say, about $150 million worth of loans to all of the small businesses in here. And it was really, we rolled up our sleeves, and the C&I team did a great job on that, and we provided lots and lots of funding. When this, it's hard to, you know, as we're coming out of it, our memories sometimes are short, but it was pretty ugly there for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't know, a lot of people didn't know where they were going to, you know, make payroll, whether they were going to have to lay off people because of the COVID restrictions. And, you know, wholesale industry sectors were decimated. Hospitality, I mean, who wanted to, you know, rent a room in a hotel? And, you know, it was very, very difficult. And we're just starting to come out of that now, really. And I think that's...
it's kind of a nervous, scary time when you go in, I guess, whether commercial or personal, especially if you got a brand new business, you're an entrepreneur, you're like, oh my God, I'm going in and this person has the power to say no or yes, to give a loan. It's kind of nerve-wracking, you know. I don't know. It's like passing an MCAS test or something.
It's a process, and I think most procedures, people, you know, that don't do a lot are, you know, a little nervous about it. I mean, I'm a construction lender, for example. I've probably billions of dollars worth of construction projects all over New England in my 40-year career. But there was one that was really memorable, and that was when I built my own house.
Where was that? In Sheffield, Connecticut?
No. This was down the Cape in Mashpee, Massachusetts.
Oh, I used to live there in South Yarmouth. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So the Cape is, and that's where you know, that's where you really learn, because you're there every day. It's your money. You pay attention. You really focus. And I think as you go through, and I think a lot of people are doing, you know, what you've just described. Do I want to rent? Do I want to own? Do I want to, you know, sell? Do I want to, you know? I think as you go through that, you get experience, and you get a comfort level in, you know, how you want to move forward. And I think that's kind of important, you know, as we all, you know, rounding third and heading for home in our careers and our lives. I think it's important, you know, to have a plan. I mean, that's the first part, and you know. The flip side of C&I lending, of course, is real estate lending.
Yeah.
And that, we do an awful lot of real estate lending here, and at our bank, at Unibank, and that's one of the big jobs that you'll see. I hope everyone goes to Polar Park and sees a ball game or two this year. It's a fun event. And we have a pretty large construction loan on an apartment complex.
Yeah.
We're a participant in it. It's right across the street from it.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the Worcester area, I think a lot of communities always try to reinvent themselves. And I think, maybe Worcester's been guilty of that in the past, but I really feel that things are
Yep.
really positive, and I think it's kind of interesting how one
Sure.
One building, one ballpark
Can make a
and
difference.
It's really going to be a great thing for the city. All summer there'll be vibrant area.
Oh, yeah, all kinds. We're talking with John Kelley, and he is the Senior Commercial Loan Officer at Unibank. He's based at Gold Star Boulevard over in Worcester, and he does go to the other ones. We've got so many branches, thankfully. If I'm on one route, I think, okay, which is the quickest bank? And I'm close to. There's one on now off of Shrewsbury Street. That was a trip. I couldn't figure out how to get in the door. There was something that I had to do, and I walked away angry, and then all of a sudden I said, I'll go back. I went back, and she said, wait a minute. And it was something she had. I couldn't get in to get to the little ATM. Instead of having it outside, is that a trust issue with them? I don't know what it is, but I couldn't get in. Finally, she said, oh, here you go. And she let me in. I'm like, oh.
Retail is detail, as
John,
they
how
say,
did they get a hold of you?
And I think that's a great branch. It's been a terrific. It's really, Unibank has a certain style to it. Our branches kind of got a certain, flair to it that I think you don't always see. A lot of, like I said before, when two banks merge, there's one old ugly one. That one gets closed. The newer shiny one, and we've been really well doing that. So,
John, how can they get a hold of you? How can they get a hold of you?
You can reach the Unibank website, john.kelley at unibank.com is my email, and I'm happy to talk at any time about all things commercial.
There you go, all things commercial. If you're a small business, entrepreneur, even just go in to pick his brains, see what he says. And obviously other businesses, corporations, this type of thing, that's the place to go. It really is, right? I mean, I love Unibank. The one that opened at in Grafton, you walked in that door when they opened it, and you were treated like royalty. I mean, right there, a greeter, how can I help you, all this and that. I'm like, it was terrific. I think they had a snack or some sort of cute giveaway, something. I was very impressed. Of course, I love Unibank anyhow, but...
It's a process to open a branch, and there's a way to do it, and the goal is, of course, to create excitement, get people interested in what you're doing, the people, which again are critical, and to get some traffic going through there and getting people comfortable with the bank. And yes, we do that very well.
Well, thank you for being with us, and
thing.
Congratulations on your new title, Commercial Lending Loan Officer. I think that's awesome. I don't know if I could do it. I think it would be. I don't know if I could say no to someone. See, you could like that person sitting there for their business, right? Well, it sounds, but if you crunch the numbers or whatever and you see that, geez, they might not be able to handle this, how do you say no?
Early on, you'll learn that if you don't say no, you're doing a worse
For them.
favor for them by giving them money that they can't manage properly.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of what we do. It's our responsibility to try to make sure, and there's enough things that can go wrong in any business that you really don't want to, for example, instead of $5,000 loan, if somebody gave you $50,000, that would have you would not, maybe you would have problems paying it back. Maybe you'd have quote unquote capacity issues. So I think that's the goal of the bank, is to make sure you get what you need, but not necessarily everything that everybody wants. And I think saying no on that basis,
it's tough.
We do say no a lot because it just you have to go slowly when you're a business. You can't just quadruple your sales in the first 3 months.
I admire you for being able to do that. You could send me in as the yes person. That's it. If it goes through, now I want you to meet Jan. She's got great news for you. Thanks for being with us, John.
Oh, it's a pleasure, and thank you for having me, Jan.
You're welcome. We'll see you next time and be my guest.
Riding on a shooting star, heading out toward a dream. Tomorrow's even closer than it seems.